Okay, so I want to talk about animal husbandry. And contrary to popular belief, animal husbandry does not mean animal breeding or anything like that. It purely means how we care for our animals. There's a couple different parts to this. One part of it is safety. It's the first part we're going to talk about. And I don't necessarily only mean safety for animals. I also mean safety for people. Okay, so things like human error. We're all human, all right? Poor judgment, making bad decisions. If you work when you're tired, if you're not focused on what you're doing, anything like that can end up causing you to get hurt. Also, improper training. Unfortunately, a lot of managers are not as good about explaining how to work with equipment or animals very well, especially if you're working with someone who's never worked around animals before or never worked with the equipment. You need to make sure that you know how to handle it. Also in the industry, we have what's called personal protective equipment, or PPE. These would be things like your closed-toed shoes, safety glasses, those sort of things. Injuries can occur from slippery floors, dusty conditions, things like that, if you're not using your PPE. And then also environmental factors. Poor ventilation is a big one. A lot of animals have a very high level of ammonia in their urine, and inhaling fumes of ammonia is just not fun. Chemical safety. So any chemical that is kept on the property has to be properly labeled as well as stored, and you also have to have what's called a material safety data sheet with that. And the material safety data sheet is basically just a sheet of paper that has everything you need to know about that particular chemical, what its chemical makeup is, what's its name, how is it supposed to be stored, anything like that. Workers also need to be trained on how to use chemicals in addition to how to handle animals or how to work with equipment. And then, of course, your PPE has to be used and properly cleaned following any contact with chemicals. As far as animal handling, the facilities also need to provide a safe environment for the animals as well as the people. Things like safe footing, nothing slippery, adequate space. We're working with livestock. They're large animals. They need space to move. Properly working equipment, and of course adequate lighting. If you can't see what you're doing, the animal can't see, it's just not a good combination. As far as animal behavior, so they have the same senses that we do. Vision for them is a little bit different because they are prey animals. They have a wider range of vision. Their peripheral vision is quite large because their eyes are located on the sides of their head. And that's good for peripheral vision, but it's not very good for depth perception. So we have better depth perception than these animals. They have better peripheral vision because they are able to see all the way around them. They're able to see predators coming, particularly, but they can't see very far in front of them. So because of this, because they have limited depth perception, their eyesight is rather poor. They can cause reactions to movements and contrasting patterns, even if it's something that's not threatening. So a small object or a small movement can actually distract animals and cause them to react much more so than they would, say, you or me. Noise. So also because they're prey animals, they have very sensitive hearing. So they can react negatively to loud noises, high-pitched sounds, anything they're not used to hearing. Excessive noise will actually confuse animals. So on windy days or rainy days, the reason that bothers them is because they actually can't hear. It's not because the rain is falling on their back or they're bothered by the breeze, hitting them or something like that. No, it's actually because of the noise. They can't hear as well. And animals actually remember negative experiences. So even if they've had a positive experience in the past, they will also remember negative experiences. So typically speaking, when we handle our animals, they're not going to attack humans unless they're provoked or out of fear. If they're backed into a corner or something like that, then they would attack. But their first instinct is really to run away. They tend to show aggression if they're cornered, if they feel like they can't get away. And this is the concept often referred to as fight or flight. So everyone has a first reaction, and typically that is flight, to run away. If they can't do that, or they feel like they can't do that, that's when they will fight. Animals' mothers in particular will also show aggression when they're protecting their babies. If you have a mom that's just had a calf, then you really have to be careful and have a lot of caution when you're handling her or her baby, because it could end up causing a problem. So different types of equipment that we can use to restrain animals. So head gates and squeeze chutes. These really are designed to meet specifications. So curved chutes with solid walls will actually encourage animals to move better if they can't see a whole lot, they can't get distracted by a whole lot, so they'll be able to move with less stress. Halters. So halters can be used on horses, cattle, sheep, and goats, and it's kind of the equivalent of a dog collar. We use it when we lead them, but it goes around their head as opposed to around their neck. Muzzles can help restrain companion animals like our dogs and cats. We don't really use muzzles on livestock very much because they don't tend to bite unless they're provoked. So here I've shown you a head gate and a squeeze chute and here on the left. And basically what this is a gate that actually holds the head in the gate. It doesn't squeeze down, nothing like that. It's just small enough so that it goes around the neck, but it's large enough to go around the neck, but small enough that the head can't get through. And then these sides actually come up and hug the animal, and that actually calms them down quite a bit. This is an example of a halter. You can see it goes around the head, not around the neck. And then these are muzzles. I thought these were just cute because they look like little duckies. So the flight zone. The flight zone is this imaginary circle that surrounds an animal, or it could surround a herd if they're in a herd situation. And when a person enters that flight zone, the animals will actually react and they'll just move away. So you can actually use this to move livestock more efficiently. You can kind of use it to herd them. This is what your herding dogs will do if you have a herding dog with a herd of sheep or goats or something like that. They'll use the flight zone to keep the animals going in the direction they want them to go. So this is the example of a flight zone. So here's our animal, and the flight zone goes around it. And each animal's flight zone is different. It could be that they're very tolerant of people in their space, and so they won't have a very big flight zone. They could have a really large flight zone. It depends on the animal. Okay, but either way, if the handler's outside the flight zone, the animal's not going to retreat. But as soon as the handler stands inside the flight zone, then the animal moves. So awareness of animal behavior, we can really learn a lot just by watching an animal. So these are all signs that an animal is suspicious or scared. So if their head is up, they're trying to get a better view of something. Wide eyes, same thing. If I were to tell you, oh, by the way, you have a test tomorrow, your eyes might start to bug out of your head. It's the same type of reaction that our animals are going to have. Flaring nostrils indicates stress. Tense muscles indicate stress. And also ear position. So as far as horses go, their ears will point in the direction that they are interested or nervous or something like that. In an object they're not familiar with, they're going to point their ears towards it. That's how you can tell what they're thinking. So livestock are not born knowing that humans are good. Okay, so they're not accustomed to human contact. When an animal is born, you really need to put your hands on it immediately. So you really want to make human contact a positive experience. You don't want to, even like tapping them too hard or something like that, you want to make it a positive experience. You don't want to yell, you don't want to wave your arms around, you don't want to make loud noises, because again, they're sensitive to that. And animals will remember both positive and negative experiences. So making sure that you're acclimating your animals regularly and making it a positive experience is something that's very important. We'll stop there and we'll talk about animal management in the next video.